I was heading to my car in the garage. When he came into my view, I was so startled that I let out a loud cry. What the hell? Food scraps were strewn all over the car. They were even thrown inside. A waft of stench hurt my nose from the humidity when I opened the car door. I covered my nose and mouth with my hands. That's what you deserved. With the voice, my mother-in-law appeared from the shadow like in the horror movie. She had been jealous of me buying a new car for a while, so I quickly understood this horrible act. I closed the door and moved away from the car in desperation. I knew she was planning to harass me in some way, but I never thought to this extent. But this is Joe's boss car. No! She committed the fiasco as an attempt to harass me. I couldn't help but think to myself, what an idiot. I'm Maria, a 28-year-old working wife. I currently live with my husband as well as my parents-in-law. My job is an admin assistant at a real estate agency, but in truth, I once dreamed of being a piano teacher. I had no choice but to give up, because it required early childhood education in order to join the company I wanted to. After failing to get into my first choice of music school, I went to a university, which offered only general music and vocal performance majors. I got a job at my current company as an office worker after graduation, and met my husband Tim, who was 2 years older than me at work. When we got married after 2 years of dating, I changed from full-time to part-time. We bought a brand new house initially thinking the two of us would live alone. But before we had time to enjoy our newlyweds life, my in-laws moved in. My parents want to move in with us because their house is getting old. That's okay for you, right? What? He suggested as a matter of course. I was too astounded to make a protest. Why so suddenly? He responded nonchalantly to the question that finally came out of my mouth. I told you, their house is old. It's gonna cost a lot of money to renovate, so it's better for them to just move in with us. They can take half of our mortgage payments too. It's a win-win situation. Don't make such a big decision by yourself. We didn't buy this house with that intention. It's too small. You, my dad, and I work, so we probably can renovate or rebuild the house in a few years. That wasn't my point. He didn't even ask me. And just because their house was old, they brazenly planned to move in. I wasn't happy about it at all, but he just shrugged it off. Joe, my father-in-law, still worked, but of course he wasn't that young. By the time we upgraded the house, he was going to be around retirement age. Then the burden of the cost wouldn't have fallen on us. We just bought a new house, but we are already talking about upgrading? I was against the idea to the end, but I was completely ignored, and my in-laws moved in as a matter of course. The four of us began to live together. At first, my in-laws showed her gratitude and humble sides, but soon they made themselves comfortable. Before I knew it, the responsibility of the housework was put on my shoulders even though I had a job. Neither Tim or Joe helped me at all, thinking it was normal that I, who worked part-time, should do it and not they, who worked full-time. Nancy, my mother-in-law, said she hurt her back and didn't even help me in the kitchen. Furthermore, she started harassing me on the grounds of jealous, and I had an income and savings compared to herself. She used various tactics to cause me headaches. For example, she purposely placed a glass with a drink on the edge of a coffee table while I was vacuuming. She waited for me to move or bump into it and knock the glass over. Then when I was caught in her trap, and the drink spilled all over the place, she gave me a disapproving look with a smirk. Oops, my bad. I put it on the edge. Isn't serving drinks to your boss a part of your job? Then you must be used to cleaning up spills. Hurry, it's gonna stain the rug. She just watched and laughed at me as I rushed to get a rug and wiped. At those times, I got frustrated that I yelled at her harshly. I told you so many times before not to put it on the edge. Oh my God, are you blaming me? You're terrible. You did it, not me. You purposely put it there for me to knock it over. How dare you? She suddenly menaced at me and started ranting. You falsely accuse me for your mistake. That's insulting. It's terrible to blame others. You point finger at me when it's your own fault for being clumsy. Stop playing the victim. You can't even do anything right to begin with. I wonder how you're holding your job. I envy that your office is so patient with you. If I were your boss, I would have fired an useless employee like you immediately. You can't cook, can't clean, and can't even wash clothes properly. It was just so wrong for her to say such things to me when she didn't work and didn't do her chores but just sat around at home all day long. I felt ridiculous to deal with her, so I told him that night instead. But he just shrugged off my distress signal. I'm not sure that's true. I doubt that she's the kind of person to do such a thing. But it happened more than once. She keeps doing the same thing over and over. And she doesn't even help me with any housework. She just eats snacks and spills crumbs all over the place when I'm cleaning. Don't make a fuss about the trivia thing. She's still in pain from her back injury. I'm sure she wants to eat snacks time to time too. How can you tell her she's not allowed to do that? Put yourself in her shoes for a minute. You of all people should try to put yourself in my shoes. Even though I pleaded almost in tears, he was unaffected. Joe, too, must have been aware of what Nancy was doing to me, but he chose to turn a blind eye. Even when I was right next to him being harassed by Nancy, he never intervened. It became too depressing to stay at home, so I got my chores done early in the morning when no one else was awake on my days off. I stayed out during the day and refreshed my mind by playing the piano that was placed for anyone to play in town. As I played, people gathered around me and even applauded at the end. I always felt reinvigorated then. On one of my days off, when I finished playing and stood up to leave, an old man came up to me. You sound excellent. Oh, thank you so much. I must have sounded a bit learned, so he continued to excuse his approach. I'm sorry to bother you. I'm actually a colleague of your father-in-law. Well, more like his boss. I've seen pictures of you from the wedding. I just thought I should introduce myself. Oh, I see. Perhaps I should have acted a little friendlier, but I couldn't bring myself to be more enthusiastic to introduce myself. To be honest, I wasn't keen to make any acquaintances with the man who worked with Joe. Joe not only ignored Nancy's abuse to me, but he let me to do all the chores, and had not even given me a single word of encouragement when I was exhausted. But the man didn't seem to mind and spoke nicely to me. I'm actually have seen you play here often. May I be bold to ask you a favor? I would like you to teach me how to play the piano. What? I exclaimed at his indeed a bold and sudden request. The man's name was Mr. Miles. He had been interested in playing piano, and since his retirement was approaching, he wanted to start practicing as a hobby. But he couldn't find a suitable piano teacher or class for seniors. When he was about to give up his quest, he found me there. Of course I will pay the fee. Oh, but you'll be doing me the favor and making time for me, so you will certainly be paid. But I'm not sure what Joe will say. I'll speak to him myself, so don't worry about him. But it's still a nuisance, isn't it? Then I don't mean to force you. No, I would love to, I said in a hurry. The fact that if my in-laws heard about me refusing him, I didn't know what kind of harassment they were going to give me. But more than that, I was quite excited about it. I thought it was a unique opportunity to teach piano, which was my childhood dream. From then on, I gave lessons to Mr. Miles every Saturday and Sunday at a studio where we rented for vacation. I felt bad about it as he was paying me on top of the rental fee, but he didn't seem to mind it at all. It's all for my enjoyment anyway. I look forward to the practice. Since he had been interested in playing, he sounded quite good for the first time. And the more I taught him, the more he improved, and the happier I was. Soon I began to look forward to the weekend. Joe heard about the practice from Mr. Miles, and his attitude toward me had softened a little. When he saw me preparing meals as soon as I got home from work, he began to say, "Thank you for doing that." That alone was a relief. After about 6 months, I was able to save money through my part-time job and piano lessons, so I decided to take a plunge and buy the car. The car I had been using with Tim became unavailable when my in-laws moved in. Nancy always had a priority when she went out because she was too lazy to walk, while I had to take a bus and walk with big grocery bags in both hands. I had been wanting my own car that I could use for day to day. When I finally bought it, Nancy complained a lot to me. "You spend your disposable income only on yourself. If you had so much money to buy the car, you could have spared some for us. You really don't care about us, do you? What a self-centered daughter-in-law." Ever since she moved in, she'd been living in comfort, doing nothing thanks to me. Who was more self-centered? As much as I wanted to argue, I learned to ignore her to save my energy. By this time, I had come to realize that the more I talked back, the more aggressive she became. Soon after this, she dumped raw garbage all over the car. When I told her it was Joe's boss car, she just screamed at me, "Don't lie to me." It was a fact no matter what she said. The car I bought had a problem right after and was taken by the dealer for inspection. When I told Mr. Miles about it, he offered to lend me his car. "But don't you need it too?" "Not really. I don't like driving so much." "So nice of you, but—" I contemplated. I was afraid Nancy was going to damage his car. I had been alarmed based on the past harassments and the reaction I got when I made the purchase. When I confided this to Mr. Miles, he looked really stunned. "I'm sorry that you've been going through such terrible ordeals." Then he gave me a warm smile and continued, "Well, you should take my car more than before now. Even if she did something to you, you wouldn't be in trouble. Moreover, I'll have a reason to scold that Joe." That was how I came to borrow his car. Nancy made a mess the day after he arrived. She was willing not to lie to her. Hearing the commotion, Tim and Joe came to the garage. "What's going on?" As soon as he spoke, he noticed the car and froze there. This is Mr. Miles' car. What the hell happened to it?" "Oh my God, Mr. Miles is your boss, isn't it? Why is his car in our garage in the first place?" I answered to Tim. "Joe knows, but I've been giving piano lessons to Mr. Miles every weekend. He was kind enough to let me borrow his car while mine was away for inspection." Nancy was looking like a ghost. Tim and Joe had never imagined that she was the culprit and were both panicking. "How did this happen? Did Raccoon come inside? Anyway, we need to clean." I raised my voice and cut him short. Nancy did this. I saw her doing it. The three of them looked at me in bewilderment. "How dare you blame me?" she shrieked. "You're a liar. How could I do such a terrible thing?" "She's right. I've been taking things easy on you because of Mr. Miles. But I can't allow you to say anything that would undermine my wife. Jo sternly took her side. Tim also nodded in agreement with him and didn't even try to help me. But I had a trick up my sleeve. Well then, let's find out. I've set up a surveillance camera. We can check and easily find out who is responsible. Again, the three of them were surprised. The one who expressed the biggest shock, to the point that her eyeballs were about to fall out, was Nancy. For what? There's been a lot of misdemeanor going on around here lately. I just bought a new car myself, and I was worried that it might be damaged. In truth, it was the measure against Nancy's harassment. I wanted to have proof in case something happened to my car. Then, let's see now. Jo, who seemed to believe Nancy completely, was so determined to find out who was responsible. Tim agreed. Let's do it. But of course Nancy was not keen on it. Wait, we should clean this up first. You're right, that's cleaning up. The recording won't disappear anyway, but probably we can't get rid of all the stains and smells even if we clean it now. Jo gave me a stern look and said, How can you be so calm? You rented his car, so it's your responsibility. You brought shame on me. I'm telling you, it's Nancy who did this. Enough with your false accusation. Let's check the recording now. If you're wrong, you know there'll be a consequence. He made a treat, but as soon as he saw the recording, his demeanor changed completely and turned pale. Nancy, what have you done? He asked her in a trembling voice, as if he were suppressing his anger. She responded in despair. It's not what you think. I didn't do it on purpose. You know, I'm not capable of doing such a thing. It was an accident. She stammered, and Jo grimaced at her. You're caught on the camera. You were trying to friend me by damaging my boss' car. That's not true. So why did you do it? If Mr. Miles disfavored me, I don't know what will happen to my career. You know it, and yet you did it. No, you're wrong. I never want to trouble you. I did thinking it was Maria's car. She was so upset by Jo's accusation that she dug her own grave with all her might. An awkward silence fell in the garage. You were going to do such an atrocity to me. I broke the silence, pretending to be naive. Afterwards, Jo frantically apologized to Mr. Miles. Apparently, he was severely scolded. Mr. Miles told me all about it. I told him that his wife was the culprit in this case, but it's not irrelevant to say that he's been turning blind eye to her abuse on you. He was as much responsible as her. And then Jo was given a demotion. I was stunned to find out he had such an authority. He wasn't just a boss of Jo, but was actually a member of the higher management. I told him that I didn't feel safe living under the same roof with Nancy and asked for a divorce. I was fortunate that I had the financial resources to take the plunge right away. I wondered myself why I put up with all this time. Tim tried to resist with all his might, but the surveillance video alone was sufficient grounds for divorce and for alimony. Jo, who was demoted, and Tim, who was divorced all because of Nancy, were pissed off. I heard they treated her with spite, and sometimes they fought all night long. As for me, I'm really refreshed to be single now. In addition, I went on to open my own private piano school using the experience from teaching Mr. Miles. I'm so fortunate to have had him as my student. Moreover, he is very satisfied with my lesson that he brings other people to the class. Piano classes are a huge success for seniors. I'm finally living a fulfilled life.